rainstorm outside, and it's not just dark and cloudy outside. It may feel a little dark and cloudy inside. It is our final challenge live defense heading into the big finale. So we are at Challenge 3 Defense Night. I'd like to welcome everybody. Of course, my name is Eric Wright. I'm going to be your host, part of the co-creation team of Virtual Design Master. We have our usual players here, so everybody knows Melissa very well, and Angelo, my cohorts who make all this craziness happen. We also want to thank, of course, our judges for the event. We have Lior Kamrat, who's joining us from Las Vegas. We have Byron Schaller, who's joining us from somewhere in Maine at the moment, I believe. And we also have, of course, Rebecca. So Rebecca, thank you for everybody. We know that this is an exciting time. We've got our competitors who are live. We've gotten 3 challenges in. We've seen a lot of stuff happen. And most importantly, this is the time where we get to talk about the big stuff, which is where we're heading into challenge number 4. And we also want to talk about our prizes. So one of the things about being part of this great opportunity here is that you get a chance to not just learn a lot, but you get to win some exciting prizes. And those are presented by our sponsors. So of course, for folks that don't already know our sponsor list, we are very lucky and thankful to be supported by Round Tower Technologies as our premier sponsor, as Packet.net, who's our hosting sponsor for the event this year. We also have Revelo Systems. Revelo is a great community supporter. They're providing some cash towards the prizes, as well as being able to open up the demo environment for folks that are on the call. But we have Byron and Rebecca, not only judges, but they're also supporting us through prizes. So thank you very much. We have community contributors. We have an anonymous contributor who's joined us now for multiple seasons. So big thanks to our anonymous contributor. We have James Brown. So James, previous competitor, and now providing his Judge's Choice Prize, which we're going to announce tonight. And we have Frank Denneman, who's a longtime supporter, and also giving us 10 copies of the Host Resources Deep Dive for vSphere 6.5. So we're going to give away 2 copies of that tonight. And so make sure you keep watching live and tweet out, "I want a Host Resources Deep Dive book." Make sure you copy Frank Denneman and at I think it's Host Resources or Resource Deep Dive, Host Deep Dive. There we go. I'll get it right. At Host Deep Dive on Twitter.
And Jason, tell us why you want the book.
That's
Extra
right.
Points given for zombies.
Exactly. It's also Jason Langer. So Jason's a 5-time supporter of Virtual Design Master and a good friend in the community. Paul Woodward, previous competitor, also joining us here as a prize sponsor. So Paul is giving prizes to our last week's top winner and also to this week another winner. So we actually want to announce that we have a $50 prize first out of the gate that's going to go to Adam for the top design for last week. So that's a nice little bonus. Thanks to Paul for sharing that. And TVP Strategy, who are providing access to the research portion of the TVP Strategy website for our top 3 competitors. Whew, that's a lot. And we want to quickly talk about what the actual prizes are. I know it's a lot. We generally didn't want to sort of monetize what it is that people are going after, but it is important because this is a huge support. So our first prize winner, when we announce our winner in 2 weeks, is going to win $1,500, which is a combination prize from a variety of sources. Our second prize winner is going to win $850. Ideally, these are going to be used towards a certification or something. We cannot buy certifications in advance, so we're going to leave it up to folks to make a pick as to where they want to be. A $500 Newegg gift card going to the third prize winner, and that's going to be from Jason Langer. And to our 4th and 5th prize winners, so folks that are on today that will not be going forward with us, will each get $100 from Revelo Systems. And again, as mentioned, $50 to Adam for last week, and then this week we're going to be announcing who's going to win our top choice design this week. And of course, we have $150 for the Judge's Choice, and then we also have a special prize that's going to be announced next week, and that's from Melissa herself. And this is the $100 Amazon gift card for the Designer's Choice. As the creator of all of our storyline and our designs, it's really cool to get a chance to have Melissa share who she thinks did something very interesting. And of course, it may come with some harsh news. A lot of fun. With that, I want to get back to the good stuff. Angelo, you know where to take it from here. This is where the fun happens.
Thanks, Eric. Good to see everyone. Before we start, I thought we'd have Lior tell us what mascot we're using today, or we have planned today.
I lost the bet. All right.
I have my sticky. I have my yellow, my pink sticky.
So since we're all about monsters and zombies and this kind of crap, So today mascot
Ah,
is Cookie Monster,
good stuff.
Yeah.
and it's a newly mint Cookie Monster, which I just picked up. So Cookie Monster is watching.
There
Good
you go.
stuff. Great.
C
And
is for creative design.
I know you're in Las Vegas at the moment for a Microsoft conference. Maybe you want to just quickly share some highlights from the conference for folks.
Yeah, so Microsoft Ready is a new event. For the first time, Microsoft brought, so this is an internal event, non-customer event. First time Microsoft brought all the technical folks, the sales personals, the technical account managers, all the architects, product managers, R&D, everyone in the same building here in the Palazzo in the Venetian in Las Vegas. Tons of cool sessions, a lot of collaboration, product managers all over the place, getting hit by architects like myself, which is kind of fun. Some NDA stuff, which obviously I cannot talk about, but there are some cool things going on for sure. This Virtual Design Master, we talked about it when we started, that it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. So like I mentioned, being a VMware guy for so many years, being with Microsoft for almost 2 years, it's a big difference. And for the first time, I'm feeling like the intensity of it. So very cool event.
Good stuff. And I'm sure folks can follow your blog for public updates on the event as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I have tons of stuff going on in draft for the plane. I have like 17 hours worth of flight. So
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of blogs. Good stuff. Okay, folks. Busy night tonight. Really intense. No one's smiling. Well, now Nigel's smiling. That's good. Good to see. So we are going to start tonight with Adam. Adam, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. And tonight will be slightly different. We're going to let all three judges pose questions to each of you. So get ready. It's going to be a wild night tonight. So with that, Adam, you have 45 seconds starting now.
So environments to centralize provisioning and management and automate a full stack deployment, I've created a central command environment consisting of our declarative infrastructure management tool, Terraform, our procedural configuration management tool, Chef, and a code pipeline to give us continuous delivery for our humanity. All of these are a series of code commit repositories based on Git that will allow us to perform these automated provisioning tasks to these new environments.
Good stuff. A lot of big terms in there, I heard. So with that, Rebecca, any comments for Adam?
I'd like to defer to Lior to go first.
Lior.
All right. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
I'm good.
All right, buddy. So I have like couple of mixed questions going on. So it looks like you're all about AWS, which is great. I'm trying to see what we can do about it. So you constantly talked about simplicity and the fact that this is one of your core requirements. So the first question is pretty technical, or maybe a decision-making kind of question. So you mentioned that you are using Chef to control and manage the lifecycle of the application and not the application, maybe the patch management and the infrastructure changes, those kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And you also have Terraform on the infrastructure stack, correct?
Correct.
All right. So I'm wondering why using two solutions when one can do both? Plus, what you have done differently if you didn't have that PaaS service as ops work?
Okay. Definitely. So the reason I've divided these tasks is because I really feel the sweet spot for Terraform is on the infrastructure side. It also comes in handy when we're using things like Packer to deploy an immutable infrastructure with my design. So I cut off Terraform's involvement at the actual infrastructure layer and continued from the OS layer onward using Chef. Now, in that choice, I went with a procedural tool so that we can more granularly and specifically define the actions to take place, because we are dealing with a custom set of applications. So that's my justification for the tool set. What I might have done differently had I not had the platform as a service available, if we didn't have those cool integrations that we get as a result of going all in, I probably would have gone with something like, there's a lot of overlap between those two. If I were staying in a mutable infrastructure model, if I were going toward a more immutable model, I perhaps would have just gone with a mixture of Terraform and Packer to just deploy those instantly,
All right.
deploy them rather whenever needed.
All right, cool. So next question. You described, like you mentioned that you have a pipeline, right? So you have a pipeline for your processes, for your build, for everything. But we try to understand, what does the pipeline looks like? What is the CI/CD flow? Who is pushing the code? Who is doing the code review? Where are the approval policies? And what did you use if you didn't have code pipeline?
Okay.
Try to summarize that in like 1 minute.
Okay. So although the level, I believe the steps I included in the workflow were valid. So monitor a source repository for commits. That would be that part of the process. Complete an automated build process when a commit is detected. Pass those results on to an administrator for approval, and then you the deployment tool on the other end for deployment. Now, that's, like you said, that's all pretty simple in the workflow. I was able to build those rules in as a result of that service. But perhaps I would have actually, for the overall orchestration of the process, I don't specifically know what I would use, but part of the pipeline, I know that Jenkins could be a good fit for getting the new code between the actual repository and the commit phase to the deployment phase.
All right. Rebecca, he mentioned Jenkins, so right at you.
Yeah, so why did you use Code Deploy and Chef? Why didn't you use Jenkins? And if it was a good fit, why would you use two tools instead of using one?
I think, well, although we're using two different tools, it's brought together by a platform service that is together very easy to use. And because I pointed out as a risk, it's not really worthwhile if we're not going all in. That was my justification for choosing the tool to automate that from end to end, rather than piecing together a manually managed service.
So why not go all in?
That's what was done here in US services.
Okay. So I have what is your RPO?
The RPO was 24 hours for everything.
Okay. I'm not great at math. I'm going to go ahead and preface my next statement with that. But your SLA that you said in your design document was 99.95%. And me doing a quick calculation, that equals about 4.5 hours maximum of downtime per year. So aren't you violating your SLA with your RPO if you're only backing up once every 24 hours?
No, that was actually in the risk mitigation. No, well, where the percentage was shown was as a justification for a single region design using multiple AZs. That can provide 99. It's not a requirement within the design, so I just go back to that.
Okay, so I'll just call all my customers then and let them know that SLAs don't mean what we think they mean. So it's just a comment. Your conceptual section is actually a logical design. So you say it's conceptual, but you have design decisions made at a logical level. So I'm not sure about that one. How do you test the code before it's deployed?
I would build that into the workflow and make sure that access, to the test and development for that piece. So I would just have to build an additional step into the code pipeline for that to take place. And if a new dedicated environment is needed for that, the same provisioning and configuration management process can be used for that.
Okay. So the key word there is that you said that you would build that in. Why didn't you build that in?
I guess it's just a matter of how deep we were going down the actual development path instead of providing the infrastructure required to build and deploy the solution.
Okay. I just have two more quick questions before I turn it over to Byron. The first one is, do you know what computers eat for snacks?
I don't.
Microchips. One more question. How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's obviously a hardware problem.
Boom.
Man, you're a tough crowd. I was convinced. Lior told me that there's no way I could make you laugh, and I'm really upset that he was right. So,
And now I won the bet.
I know, now you win. Now I have to pay Lior. So thanks, Adam. All right, Byron, to you, sir.
So first, I have I guess two comments. I really enjoyed your use of trust falls. I'm a big trust fall fan, and your use of parking spaces as rewards, I think, is a great way to motivate people. So excellent job there. First question, I guess, is you have everything in Amazon. So from your code repository to your pipeline tools to your production systems, do you see any risk in that? Having everything in really one basket there?
I guess the same risk mitigation process outlined in the first two designs would be the same one I'm applying here. Had I not taken advantage of a single provider or even made use of a single region in creating the solution, I wouldn't be able to leverage some of these resources, notably the VPC peering function. So I think there are some potentially some drawbacks. I guess I'd point back to the DR process and environments that I created that would carry forward without problem in this type of infrastructure build out.
Okay. Do you see any value in having an external code repo or backing up somewhere off site so you could recreate in case of a full outage? And if so, how would you do that?
Most definitely. So one of the downsides of the code commit service is that it does not perform automated backups. So having a scheduled task running on a backup server to take a full clone of the contents of those repositories in a different location would definitely be something I would include.
Okay. One other question. So you have pretty much every Amazon service use that you can. Except for CloudFormation. Why Terraform and not CloudFormation here when everything else was very PaaS service based?
That's a good question. The use of I personally think Terraform's easier to use and would be in support of our primary constraint, which is that we have limited technical resources, and it's just as robust, if not more so, all of the features CloudFormation does, and usually does so much more quickly than even CloudFormation does. So that would be my justification there.
I'll accept that. I don't like CloudFormation very much. That's good. Okay, I'm good. Thanks.
Thanks, Byron. Wow, that was intense. Oh, I got him to. I got Adam to smile.
Got it.
I got you, Adam. I got you.
None of my jokes worked, and Angela's, man, I quit.
Because I thought we were friends.
Oh, good stuff.
No,
eh?
to quote Drake, no new friends.
Never quote Drake.
Stuff.
No.
Good stuff. Good job, Adam.
You love it, Byron.
We are going to Chris. We had a little back and forth on our back channel in Slack. Chris is on deck, and you have 45 seconds starting now.
So this week I had two sort of main goals that I wanted to achieve on design. Firstly, I wanted to continue trying to improve my use of conceptual, logical, and physical design methodology. And that was in a few areas. I wanted to focus on doing the conceptual design earlier on, I wanted to sort of better document my design decisions and ensure they were linked back to in the conceptual design. And I wanted to try avoiding deciding on specific tools in the logical design and leave that for the physical section. And I think I managed to do most of that in the design. Secondly, I wanted to include in my design a tool that provided pipelines to enable continuous delivery. And increasingly felt that such a tool was core to my design. So I started looking at Concourse, and I spent some time away from my design, getting familiar with Concourse and using YAML for the first time. And the little time I spent, Concourse made sense, and so it became a key component.
Good job, Chris. Good job. For a second, I don't know if anyone else caught this, but for a second there, I thought my audio was on 2 times speed because he was just going through it. So good job.
Really good.
I know I had to cut you off there, but real good. Let's start with Byron.
Hey, Chris. So first thing, excellent use of haiku. That's one of my favorite haikus. I used that Monday myself. So strong work there. So questions, do you consider running Terraform plan to be a sufficient test?
No, it was just, I think in my design, I said that was the test, and that's not really what I meant. I meant at that stage in my pipeline, that would be kind of the first test I'd run. So to do a Terraform plan, and if the code was broken in any way, so Terraform wouldn't actually run, then that would error out at that point. And that would also, in the pipeline, enable the Terraform plan to output whether it was going to do any destructive changes, and then enable that manual step to be triggered in the pipeline.
Okay. If you were to add some infrastructure testing to your pipeline, what's something that you could use to do that?
I don't know off the top of my head. So I guess I could just build some basic scripts. So when I actually deployed stuff, I'd be looking at whether stuff was pingable and available, what changes have been made, and whether I could open up web pages, just simple curls and things like that, I guess. So that would be more when Terraform had actually deployed something. In the stage before that, before it actually got deployed and testing, that was just Terraform plan, and then I guess I would go off and investigate more things around code syntax and whether things have been followed. I guess some security testing as well to make sure vulnerabilities weren't being introduced, and also things around opening up ports and things like that in security groups and pieces like that to make sure people weren't doing things that weren't compliant with a security plan.
Okay. Yes. In the future, you may want to take a look at service spec or inspec by Chef. Is a real nice way to pull all that off in a succinct way. Second, why'd you choose Concourse for your CI pipeline tool?
So I mentioned it in my challenge too. I came across it in working with Cloud Foundry, and Concourse is a pivotal sort of the key developers for it. I think Concourse made a lot of sense to me because of how they treat pipelines as a first-class citizen. So I've had a little bit of experience with just talking to the dev team at work about Jenkins, and when Jenkins went to 2.0 and sort of introduced pipelines, and it felt a bit like it was sort of trying to squeezed in, and how they were trying to define things and jobs and tasks and the confusion around that. But with Concourse, it kind of comes at pipelines straight out the bat. So it kind of all makes sense in terms of a pipeline, a plan, a job and task, and how that hangs together. So it kind of just looks like a nice tool for that. And also in using it and playing with how it uses YAML, that's the first time I've used YAML, but it made sense where you can't actually make any changes in the config. So you have to make all your updates in that YAML file. So they're trying to make CI servers not snowflakes where you put a load of config in and then it's all in the GUI and you've got no way of backing that up or applying it elsewhere. Because with Concourse, it's all done in YAML. If that server dies, you just build another one and then deploy your pipelines again from your YAML files. And then you can even version control your pipelines if you want.
And you totally should. Absolutely. No, I'm a big Concourse fan, so I really like seeing that. Nice work overall. Thanks. I'm good.
Lior?
Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good.
All right. So let's talk about your CV for a second, because you mentioned that having Git and Docker on your CV is a good idea. So let's talk about that for a second. Trying to understand, how does your Docker image registry strategy align with your build process? What was the thought about that? Because I haven't seen anything around Docker registry. So I was wondering.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of a weak area in my design, and I'm not that familiar myself with Docker really. So I know in sort of past people have looked at that, but I kind of wanted to focus more on looking at a level above that. So that's why I was looking at the Cloud Foundry piece, because I think the Cloud Foundry would take care of most of the automation of the environment and the containers that it was spinning up and down for that. I would have limited Docker containers, so there'd be less need for sort of scheduling those pieces. That being said, I would need a registry. Most of the containers I talked about using would be taken from public registries. So I think the Concourse containers that it was using would be taken from the Concourse, their registry. And I think the GitLab, that would be taken from Docker Hub.
Would that gonna fit with your security design?
So I don't really, again, it's kind of my security design is kind of lacking in that piece around Docker. The concern I'd have around that is using public images without any knowledge of what's being put into them. So if I wanted to make it secure, then I'd either build my own images and install them in my own private repository, or I'd pull, I think with Docker, you can pay for a service where it's scanning the containers and things to make sure that they haven't got vulnerabilities in them, so I'll do something similar myself.
All right, so just a quick comment. The registries are as important as the build process itself. You cannot ignore the registries, and you cannot ignore the fact that some of them are pretty unsecured, let's call it that way. You should talk about it with Kyle. He used Armor last time, which has got nothing to do with the registry itself, but it's a good starting point for talking about the containers security. So that's just a quick comment. So second question. So you're using heavily on Terraform, which is good. I was wondering, what is your strategy around models? How those are incorporated with your build and your design process?
So I didn't actually include modules, I don't think, in the end. I was hoping to include modules. If I had have put modules in my build, and like my process would be to separate out the definition of what I want my infrastructure to look like and template the infrastructure for staging and production, and then to have those stored as modules within my GitLab repository or a repository in GitLab, and then to have separate sort of modules to store the state and specific configuration for each environment, and then to reference the modules for the actual infrastructure in the Git repository.
All right, good work overall. Thanks.
Rebecca?
Yeah, so, again, I think I've said this every episode. I definitely love the subtle humor in your design. It makes reading more enjoyable. And particularly, I really liked your approach for getting a data center deployed physically to a location. Out of curiosity, did you create that diagram yourself?
No. Well, which diagram?
Too damn pretty. The one that's like showing the mobile data center getting dropped off and like the phases of approach to the new planet.
No, that's so the diagrams I created myself are the very basic blocky pipeline diagrams. That diagram is NASA's work, and I did reference it. So I think yeah, and it is Creative Commons. So yeah.
Well, clearly, I didn't read your references. Yeah, I was like, damn, that's a really nice diagram. Now you lose all the points that you got. So in case you're wondering how grading works, so to kind of ask one more question about containers, because I know Lior asked quite a few. Are your containers persistent, and why? Right, whatever you answer, why?
Yeah, so there's actually a mistake in my design that one of my containers isn't persistent that needs to be. So I think it's the GitLab container isn't persistent. So that would be kind of a bit of a risk. If that was powered off, then it would come back up and I'd lose all my state and all your Git repositories. So that'd be probably quite bad. But I did add persistency into the Postgres database for the Confluent setup. So that would store all the pipelines. And I'm persisting data out so that it survives a container being terminated.
Okay, so your main reason then, if I understand correctly, for persistent containers is simply to maintain consistency?
Yes.
Is there any way you could have done that without using containers?
So I could have used something like EFS or NFS or something like that to share or something to store the state, something outside of the container itself, or S3.
How?
So when the container part of the container initialization would be to mount those kind of things, and part of the configuration would be to mount those and then continue using them.
Okay. Would you describe your pipeline as a fan out or fan in?
So the pipeline itself, it sort of kind of fans in and out, I guess, as there's there's additional jobs and things like that, and then it comes back to a central piece. So yeah, both and neither.
So your answer is yes and no. Got it. Okay.
I'm covering all bases.
Yeah. So you're like, I can't be wrong if I just say both answers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Is that
Well,
the approach
maybe not.
there? Yeah. So one last question then. So I like the choice of Concourse. I do have to agree with Byron on that. So Concourse, it uses some of the Pivotal and Cloud Foundry lingo and certain tools that are available. So for example, you're using containers, you're using Concourse, you're using Cloud Foundry. Are you using the Garden API for abstracting containers? And if so, how are you using the Garden API?
So as I understand it, I wouldn't see the Garden API. So Cloud Foundry itself takes care of all of that and everything in between. There's a separate API, which I think is the Cloud Controller, which is basically what you talk to in the Cloud Foundry piece. And Concourse itself, I think, is deployed within Docker containers. I don't know. There was some mention around Garden, but yeah, I can't quite recall how that fitted in.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good job, Chris. Mr. Edwards, I thought we'd go to you because it looks like, from my vantage point, it looks like you're just eating your nails. You're either really nervous or just can't wait to get it over.
I had a bit of a cough, so I kept coughing, thinking
right.
I'm just going to cover my mouth.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So you have 45 seconds starting now.
Excellent. So this week, I've learned a massive thing is I think I need to stand back more, especially when you're doing projects like this, have an overall kind of look at it as an architect, have a better understanding of overall technologies. Something like cloud would have made this easier. I've probably shot myself in the foot by having on-premise infrastructure. I used to use, probably old habits die hard. I used to use something called Altiris to build all this. So I'm not up with the hip, cool, trendy ways of doing this. And my key thing was a lot of judges already asked this, why only not use one app? I found sometimes you can just do it with one app, or I found it is better to find a glue. For instance, my way was a CMDB or a file that glue it all together.
Good stuff. Your time's up. Good stuff. Byron.
Sure. So first off, I really enjoyed your what I would have done different section. Thought that was a nice touch. So what infrastructure would you need to support your Pixie Boot environment?
This was well, I fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole thinking I would prefer to use open source, probably like just some kind of Linux alternative. But many of the ways I looked at people doing it, they were using full-on Windows servers, and I kind of wasted, or rather lost, a few hours trying to go, well, how would I script that? How could I do that so it was immutable? Yeah, ideally I would have wanted to do it as a Linux build, but I just didn't have time to fully look into that.
Okay. I'm good.
Good, thanks. Lior?
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Edwards, how's it going?
Hi.
All right.
Busy week, but good.
All right. Did anyone notice that I'm super nice today? No? All right.
I did.
All right. So, Mr. Edwards, you mentioned that you are using MAC addresses, right? They're provided into a simple file and then goes to the CMDB in order for the host to be deployed in a automated fashion. Let's assume a wrong MAC address was entered in the file provided by the supplier and then got to the CMDB. What is your fallback plan looks like, and how do you handle the fact that the E6i host cannot be installed?
That was the bit where I was getting into a bit of an internal battle myself, where I was using HP equipment, and I made some assumptions that everything would be a perfect world. If that blade did end up in a chassis, I would hope that, although
Well,
I
you know what they say about
everything,
assumptions.
yeah, assumptions. But if a blade is put into a chassis, it prevents its, presents its MAC address. So if an engineer did have to get involved, they should be able to get that MAC address, realize that one hasn't booted, check the file, and hopefully it all marries up. I know that's not fully automated, but I think no matter how much the world wants to get automated, engineers are still going to need to be there to babysit stuff.
All right. So another question for you. Since we're talking about extending our infrastructure to other regions, what was the decision-making process looked like on where a new DB instance should be deployed, and why is that?
I kind of went for basically every day. It was trying to make sure I was as available as possible. I just thought, well, for every site I build, I will just have another database instance and have it replicated, just so it's just spread everywhere. It's probably not the best approach, but I just wanted to make sure that my database was available at every site, because we may well find we just want to access it locally if our code gets clever enough, so it's got the least latency back to the database.
So possibly database access across the WAN?
Ideally, I would want it locally, but then again, that would depend on the app and whether or not the database would support an active fashion.
What happened if the front end cannot access the back end?
I'm in a lot of trouble.
Yes, you are.
It just wouldn't work. But this again, I was playing with new technologies. I'll probably get grilled by Rebecca. I quite like the idea of a MongoDB.
You're with me right now. Don't talk about Rebecca.
I really like the idea of Mongo. I'm unfortunately always been brought up as a Microsoft guy, always on availability, but I like the idea of open source stuff, and Mongo really, I didn't know enough about how its active really worked, how it would then feed off to all the other ones and go, yep, everyone's got the right, everyone's got the commit. How does that work?
All right.
Yeah.
Last final question. Are you more of a Cinderella kind of guy or Snow White?
Ooh. Well, that's an interesting one. Live on the web. Yeah, should we go Cinderella?
All right, good choice. One comment, Edwards. So don't think because it's not a shiny new technologies kind of design, that's not the reason we think it's good or bad or whatever. As long as it works, as long as it fits the requirements, meeting the assumptions, the risks are verified, and you have good mitigations for it, and you are answering the business requirements coming from your customer, you're good to go. You're golden. Don't think about the shiny new stuff. We don't care about that.
Fair enough.
All right.
Thanks, Lior. Rebecca, by the way, Rebecca, he said MongoDB, I think like 3-4 times. So,
I did see that in your design, and I made the conscious decision to not ask you MongoDB questions because I felt like I grilled Chris enough last week about MongoDB, but you really messed up by bringing it up again. Like I was like ready to like live and like let go, but then So I'm going to start by complimenting you, and then we'll move on. So I really liked that you provided processes for not only your initial deployment and configuration, but you also had some framework in place for code change and patching cycles. I appreciated that. I also really liked your thoughts on the stackable cases for deployment. When I was in the Marine Corps, we used a very similar system for deployments all over the world, right? So my question for you with that is, how do you plan on shipping and setting up that data center infrastructure to new sites? Especially, you mentioned that one of your potential sites was the International Space Station. So how do you plan on getting that gear there?
Well, that was the bit where I probably didn't reference enough in the document. I didn't put it as an assumption, but I thought there was a very loose term in the document saying that humans might not be able to attend the site. So I wanted to have something where the cases could just be simply interconnected, maybe by robots. We come with some kind of unique connector between the cases, click, 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 and they're stacked in the way they go. And again, dare I say, if the infrastructure is mutable, we send it up on a rocket, the rocket blows up. Oh, wow, we just send another rocket up with another lot of the kit. That was just my thought.
That's a big ass rocket.
That is. But, you know, again, that was the whole thought of these cases is I've actually deployed something similar before. If I can get them in the back of a car, you know, near enough a whole infrastructure in 2 of those cases in the back of a car.
Are you assuming that your robots have opposable thumbs?
Well, this is why a lot of it will get built on within the lab. So you've still got that human element, and that's why I'm trying to say, you know, we'd extrapolate to simple connectors, and then I got down another rabbit hole going, well, how would they position the satellites if this is a place humans can't go? And
Gareth,
yeah,
honestly, I think you're your own worst enemy here.
yeah,
Like you make a good design decision and then you overthink it and over justify it to the point where we're going, what are you talking about?
it's my terrible engineer that comes at me going, if I have to do this on a site myself, why would I send a robot? Because I'm just going to swear anyway.
Would you say that your infrastructure is immutable?
Not perfectly. I know if some stuff broke, for instance, the Pixie server, or I lost certain bits of code, it would probably come back, and that's something I would want to spend some time on trying to make it better.
How would you protect your infrastructure or prevent that from happening then?
I think that's the whole reason why I kind of try to focus on this CMDB file, this one file that, dare I say, is the glue of everything. But as you said, I was my own worst enemy. I was having that internal battle with myself going, how would you glue all this together? If that file was
okay, so
in theory.
But now you just said that you're relying on one file, right? So I'm just going one thing. What is that single point of, how are you protecting that CMDB?
I was using GitHub. Again, another thing I've just fallen in love with again in the last couple of weeks. As long as GitHub is somewhere available and that is backed up, that's within all my RPOs, RTOs, I've got that's change tracked. I can see any changes on that. Again, that is a massive risk in I know its own right, but
would you say that you fall in love easily? Because you've been saying that a lot.
Yeah. I'm a techie. If I see something that's cool, it's like yes, I like that. But I see it as I saw Git as a really productive tool for me. Even throughout my design, I think I put a comment up on Twitter going, I just committed the wrong thing, but it allowed me to roll back. And I went, oh yeah, actually I can go back to where I was before I made the silly mistake.
So since you brought up MongoDB, not me, for the record, okay, how are you ensuring that database is resilient?
That is where I'm still doing some reading. I know I started to get, I think it's shards and different things like that. And
yeah, again, I would like to state for the record, the word is shard with a D on the end. I saw all the Twitter comments.
And by the way, Edwards, GitHub, January 2016, they were down.
Yeah, but then using that's again, am I using Git or GitHub? And
wait, ignore him. His time's over. How do you make your MongoDB instance resilient?
A lot more homework. I'm going to be honest. I know there are different. As I said, I got into a little bit of a battle myself, because where I've got a SQL hat on going. I know how to do always on. How does that relate to Mongo? Is it with shards and things?
Forget SQL. We're talking no SQL. How do you make it resilient? If the answer is I don't know, that's okay. Just say it.
No, I don't. I just didn't get enough time to read into it. I know there are technologies to do it. I just didn't get enough time to read into it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Gareth.
Thanks, Rebecca. Boy, that was intense, Mr. Edwards. Wow. You did good. You should be proud. You did good. Nigel.
Hello.
How are you?
The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Ouch. Ouch.
How are you?
Good, good. So you have 45 seconds starting now.
All right. My design this week revolved around my efforts after Operation Megadeth, where I actually killed everybody in my data center last time. So now we're working with myself and my 3 remaining architects, actively bringing new members on with our new security team as well. My design focused mostly around managing the infrastructure for our current sites, as well as any future sites, as well as site deployment. And we're going to be using some UAVs to explore those areas on unmanned flights, as well as leveraging Terraform and GitHub for provisioning and version controls.
Excellent. Great. Good summary. Byron?
Yeah. So first off, your use of Rebecca's ginger power as the model for the cyborg seems dubious at best, but we'll go over more of that later. Second,
Yes, we will.
Noted.
As someone who has used Cobbler in production before, why on earth did you choose to use Cobbler?
It was one of those things I wanted to give a shot. It's outside my comfort zone, something new that I had never explored. I had been tipped off by someone out in the community to give it a shot. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole with that.
So that's fair. If you're looking at doing bare metal stuff, I highly recommend looking into Rack HD. For me, EMC code is quite good.
Okay.
Cobbler's gotten better, but I know it was painful back in the day. I think so. You use Terraform to do some vSphere automation. Is there any drawbacks currently to using Terraform to do that?
Yes, it's very limited right now with the vSphere provider that's in Terraform. It's not very well supported right now at Terraform. It's workable and it does run. It's very minimalist, creating that shell of a virtual machine, and then there's some extras that have to get involved with either running scripts or doing some other things like Packer to make sure those applications that are on that VM get installed correctly.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. Right now, it is rather limited, but I know HashiCorp is hiring some folks to help fix that. But it's something to really keep in mind if you are looking at Terraform for vSphere. It's just not fully functional quite yet.
Thanks, Byron. Lior?
Hey, Nigel, how's it going?
How's it going, buddy?
Oh, good. All right. So I want to touch base on the Cobbler here for a second.
Sure.
Not actually the Cobbler part, but more of the integration part. So you are using Cobbler, you are using Terraform. Why didn't you leverage Cobbler provider for Terraform within the process?
It's something that I kind of touched on late in my design, going through the stuff. So I didn't really want to go down that path. I guess it's another learning curve and time constraint. So I stuck with the basics of Cobbler and what I knew how to set up with it, and then just leveraging Terraform for the other stuff.
All right. So I want to go old school here for a second, okay?
Sure.
And touch around, give it a go on your management clusters. What was the admission control policy looks like?
The admission control policy for the management cluster, I don't have that documented very well, as you probably could see. But I would probably set them to a percentage of having 25% of each host left over, so I could move some of those workloads around. Being that it was a management cluster, I wasn't really relying on that to be a huge issue at the start. So I mean, that could obviously be adjusted as we go forward.
Why would you go with percentage control and 25%?
Just to make sure I had enough percentage for the important workloads that need to move between hosts.
Based on what?
Based on the requirements that are not documented, but the requirement to make sure that the virtual machines within that management cluster could fail over to another host if one of the 3 hosts had failed.
All right. What if I have some reservations on those VMs?
Then we have some other problems.
What are those?
We're going to have machines not start, not move, so forth.
Why is that?
because there wouldn't be enough resources on the other host possibly, or they would be stuck to the particular host depending on if any other rules were set up.
All right. So for the management clusters, don't you think we're going to have a problem if one of the hosts is taken down by the administrator? What needs to happen on the admission control policy level?
That would have to be changed or turned off to be able to manually move those machines over, and that would get us away from an automation.
You are pretty short on staff. Do you think you have the manpower to change those?
Probably not.
Because you kill them.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So what are the other options if you are short on staff?
To build a larger management cluster with enough hosts in there to be able to take down a system if needed, or to be able to have more resources in that situation.
But if I'm increasing the number of hosts in my management cluster and still taking down one of the hosts, the percentage shouldn't be changed as well?
Yes, that would definitely have to be recalculated.
So I'm in a loop here. So what are the other options I have?
Not sure how to answer that question.
All right, so maybe changing a different admission control. All right, that's good. Who do you think will win an arm wrestling contest, Mickey Mouse or Bugs Bunny?
I would say Bugs Bunny because Mickey Mouse is weak.
All right, I don't trust you because you kill everyone. So bye-bye.
Sorry, Melissa.
Thanks.
Good. Rebecca?
I used to think Byron was my favorite person, but he's out. It's definitely Lior, for the record. You can quote me on that. Byron, I think you understand.
You don't need a beard.
I do. I totally do.
Yeah. So Nigel, I have a lot of questions for you tonight.
Sure. I'm ready.
I think you know where I'm going to start, right?
Go for it.
I would really like a lot more technical details for this Ginger Power 900 series cyborg that you have. Because number one, Ginger Power seems a little bit non-politically correct. Number two, I've also heard that it is, I should say, to be very correct here, really prime. Like it was really like the ultimate fighting force in its prime.
That's what I've heard.
Give me some technical details on this GP 900.
So I don't have much details because I've actually given that that task over to Josh 01. So Josh 01 is handling all of that. So it's more of just Josh checking to make sure that that's something that can actually happen. And I totally approve. I mean, I see the killing force behind that template. So
you think that Josh 01, who has historically always been subordinate to GP 900, is now all of a sudden better?
That's the irony, isn't it?
I don't find it very ironic.
To each his own.
Well, I will pass your message on to Josh 01, who, for the record, is still subordinate. Okay, so what's the impact? So I noticed you're using UAVs for delivery. So what would be the impact if the operating system for the UAV or PX4 was compromised in any way?
So the UAVs were more for reconnaissance missions, just going out to check the lay of the land. I hadn't really considered using them to drop those modular data centers. That was something I definitely thought of. I don't know if one of those PX4 models can actually carry that weight, so I didn't consider that. I was more thinking of ground transport to begin, and then as we move to other locations that may need airlifting, then we can consider that at that time. To answer your question, if that was compromised, those units are definitely something that can be taken apart easily. I don't know if the data inside there can be compromised and used against us, so I don't have a good answer for that.
Is it networked?
No, it's not.
Is it connected to your? It's not connected to your Wi-Fi?
No, not at all. So it's
Bluetooth?
It's a GPS.
Okay, so it's GPS driven. Then how is it receiving data from the PX4 application?
So that's preloaded. The flight plans are preloaded from the ground control application into the PX4 unit, and then the PX4 unit flies out, does its mission, collects information, and returns back to a base based on the flight plan. and then we can pull logs off of it and watch live video as well as it's traveling.
That's interesting. That's interesting because that all sounds like a lot of manual process to me.
Could be to begin.
So part 2 of that question is, did you just make all that up right now?
Not at all. These are correct open source things. And if you go back to the references, which I know you're not a fan of, you can actually see the references there.
I just, I'm not a good reader. Let's just be honest. So so we have these modular data centers that are getting dropped in different locations. How are you maintaining physical security since zombies are a big threat in this scenario?
So zombie threats to metal, or what are they eating when they see that data center? Does that make them hungry?
Yeah, I mean, it might. How are you powering it? Are they eating through your power sources? You don't know. So, you could have had a Kyle sprinkle some haggis on it.
Well, yeah, if there was haggis on, then we're legit. There's nothing else to worry about here.
Okay. So can you walk me through your pipeline methodology?
So the deployment methodology or pipeline methodology that I foresee would be using the Terraform to set up actually Cobbler first to deploy the host on the ESX side, Terraform to do some of the other coding for the virtual machines in AWS as well as vSphere. That all gets piped up to GitHub with Terraform Pro, and then we're able to change and review code changes before they get submitted, and like the GitHub actually mitigates that change before it's committed to the Terraform process.
So 2 more very short questions.
Sure.
One is, why are you using multiple tools? What does Terraform provide that Cobble doesn't?
Terraform, in my opinion, provides infrastructure as code. It's easy to learn. And the Cobbler, the way that I understand it, is just for PXE booting and for loading the ESX images. So it was one tool for that job and Terraform for the rest.
And I forgot my second question, so you're good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good job, Nigel. How do you
Thanks,
feel?
guys.
How do you feel?
Good. I
Good?
feel good. Yeah.
Good job. Mr. Kyle, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Okay, my friend, you have 45 seconds starting now.
Right, so this week I wanted to concentrate more on the physical design because the previous weeks I haven't got around to doing that. So I wanted to really take the time and doing a physical design. So there's a few logical decisions in there. So say some continuous integration development products in there as procedures. I've introduced Cassandra instead of the DynamoDB, so it's more open source. And then I went on the physical part of it really, and I really wanted to build upon that with a script really. So instead of just making up the physical design, I wanted to kind of deploy something and then do a physical design around that as well.
Good job. Now, I thought I caught it. Did you actually say MongoDB in your summary?
No, Cassandra.
Okay,
no
good.
MongoDB.
All right. No, I thought I heard Mongo, or I don't know. Okay, good stuff, Kyle. Lior?
Hey, Kyle, how's it going?
Good.
All right, so one comment first. You show steady progress. I like it. Keep on.
Good.
All right. So, few questions. How would you protect your repository in case of zombie became hackers?
Well, I've got the Amazon container registry down on this design initially, and I'm assuming I'll just kind of leverage the AWS security around that. I don't know if
you mentioned GitHub Enterprise.
Well,
in your design.
Okay, sorry. So I'm talking about I'm thinking about the container one. So in terms of the GitHub, I could either deploy it on premises, so GitHub on premises, or a different sort of Git repository, I suppose, instead of the one that's online.
All right. So what you have done differently if you were leaving AWS? What will be the alternative to run Docker containers at scale?
I suppose any sort of bare metal
Any sort
service.
of?
Sorry.
Any sort of?
Well, a bare metal service. And so if there's another data center, if it was an AWS, maybe it's Azure, or a different data center where we could use bare metal. Like
No, I'm talking about like specifically around the containers. So got nothing to do with the cloud platform.
Okay, sorry.
What are the other alternatives for you to run Docker containers at scale?
I could use Kubernetes, maybe, but that was something I looked at initially, but it was too far down the rabbit hole for me.
All right. Isn't relying on ECS can be a problem when it comes to open sourcing stuff?
Yeah, it can. That's why it's still a Docker container, but using ECS. So maybe we can use a Docker swarm or something in a different infrastructure.
All right. Are you going to start looking at that?
Yeah, potentially. I looked at originally on the first design, but the reason I went with AWS was the kind of orchestration around it. And I know the swarm can scale, but it was the orchestration that I couldn't quite figure out. So that's why I went the AWS route.
All right. What are the main differences between relational and NoSQL database?
I don't know. I didn't know when I was looking into it. I'm going to pass. Yeah.
All right. So you think if Big Bird will sit on Kermit the Frog, what do you think will happen?
He'll struggle. I mean, he'll struggle. Yeah.
Struggle?
He's not big, is he? He's going to struggle. He's going to get crushed.
Don't you think Miss Piggy will hate it?
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, personally, I would have felt violated, but thanks.
I never watched Sesame Street that much ago.
All right, you just lost my vote. All right,
Byron.
Oh, nice of you. All right, so Kyle, first off, I have total faith that Carol can handle the cyborgs. She just can. She's awesome. So what's the benefit of using containers as your atomic unit of deployment?
It was because there's a bit of an echo there. It was because it was stateless and immune, really, so we could just redeploy it if we need to make any changes, we can just redeploy it.
So if you're using Amazon, why not just use immutable AMIs instead and run it that way? How would that be different than using the container in ECS?
And what was the last bit? Sorry, not the container one.
Yeah. So how would using immutable AMIs be different than using containers on a ECS?
I'm not sure. I wouldn't know.
Okay. I know it's a pretty common practice. I know Netflix did it for years. That I would take a look into that. You may find that the AMI is more resilient than the container on EC2 or on ECS. But
okay.
Otherwise, good job. I enjoyed your design.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Byron. Rebecca?
I like your sense of humor in the document. I really appreciated that today. I was like reading it. I'm getting there. I wholeheartedly agree with you that zombies love haggis, Nigel. And so I really appreciate that as a last resort mechanism for security or in defense. But regarding security and defense, do you really think that having Rick and Carl is enough security to ward off zombies? I think that's a huge assumption.
Yeah, but they've lasted just how many series now? They seem to always get out of trouble.
That's fair. They've been through a lot of seasons of hell, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's got one eye, but he's doing okay.
So what you mentioned? Oof, you got it. Like I need to like. All right, so I'm serious now. So you mentioned several times in your design document that your Docker images are immutable. So my question is, what makes your Docker images immutable?
I think I'm going to go if it's the nature of the container itself, so nothing changes, so they're deployed, and then when they change, they're just tore down, and they're not configured as such. They just deploy from an image.
So you're saying that containers are natively immutable?
I wouldn't say that, but the way I'm deploying it from an image, then I would say yes.
Okay, so the way that you're deploying it specifically.
Maybe. Yes, I know.
Okay. One of those answers? Maybe, yes.
I don't know.
Okay. So how do you test code before it's deployed? Can you walk me through that?
Well, I've introduced Jenkins to do that, and that will be part of the process. So the new code will be wrote, and then Jenkins will find, well, it says a new repository, well, there's new code wrote into the Git, the Jenkins will pull that, it'll deploy a container and do its testing on it, and then if it's approved, it'll deploy it in production.
How does the approval process work? Is that manual?
Well, I haven't deployed Jenkins. I did actually want to go further and deploy, but I ran out of time, and I will have a play with it. So I've not had any hands-on experience, but from what I could gather, it can be approved, so you can send a message, I think, or send an email to somebody and tell them, or you can go as far as actually automating it and deploying it into production, I think.
One last question for you. Did you choose Jenkins because you know that Byron loves Jenkins?
No, as one of my references, there was a good Docker integration with Jenkins. I use the Docker registry as well, and that's why I went with Jenkins.
Okay. Actually, no, I lied. I do actually have one more question for you. Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite Beatle?
Favorite Beatle? Probably Lennon.
Really? Mine's Paul McSherry.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay.
Thanks, Kyle. Good job. Okay, folks, we're at the point of the show where we have to announce who's not moving forward. And I'm doing this with my hands just for extra emphasis, because I think it looks really good on camera. Doesn't really add much to the announcement, but it just, I think, looks good.
Please, someone screenshot and Photoshop in something right now. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
So I'll just stop that. But this is a very difficult moment for me to have to announce which of you are not moving forward. So before I do that, I want to throw it over to Eric, and he has something to share with folks, and then we can come back to me, maybe, if I'm here, and we'll discuss. Eric?
Don't worry, I'll be easy on everybody. We want to thank everybody for being a part of this. It's exciting. You can see the progression that everybody's had throughout the event. And much like Angelo, I prefer to use, hand gestures to describe things. But really, everybody did a great job. We know some of these questions are difficult and they're challenging. And it's really, you can feel that even though the questions feel like it's a bit punishing, especially at this time of the night or morning, wherever you're at, it really is just about testing your choices and your design decisions.
And I hope everybody's kind of felt as the weeks have gone on, it's gotten easier to deal with this kind of questioning than it was the first time you did it.
You can definitely, people have fielded the questions well. And one of the best things I love to hear is, I'm not sure, or I don't know that right now. And that's the right answer, especially when you're surrounded by folks that can help you to get to that next step. And unfortunately, the next step is that we have to take 3 people forward into our final episode. We are going to be introducing a very interesting challenge in a few moments. But don't worry, we're not sending folks home empty-handed. As mentioned, 2 of our finalists who are not going to continue on. So the number 4, number 5, we'll get a Revello gift to help to send them home. I also do want to announce we do have a special prize because we have a top design, so a standout design and sort of standout activity goes to Chris this week. And we want to thank Paul Woodward. So Chris did a great job. You can see sort of taking on new things. Everybody's really done a great job. And it's not that we haven't seen others do the same sort of thing, but we definitely saw Chris sort of dive in, and really go well into the content and pick up a lot of good stuff, and in fact see it progress through each event. So congratulations to Chris, and thank you very much again. Paul Woodward Jr., he's Explore VM, a great podcast, as well as a good fellow. With that, I want to turn it back over to Angelo, and we're going to deliver the unfortunate part of the news of the night.
Thanks, Eric. So this is the hard part. So Adam, Mr. Edwards, Chris, Nigel, and Kyle, 2 of you will not be moving on. And this is a fake smile, by the way. So just so you know. Okay, here it is. Bottom line. Let me get my paper out. Okay, never mind. Here it is. Mr. Edwards and Nigel will not be moving forward. You guys did a great job. Everyone's done a great job. A lot of the chatter, back channel chatter from the judges is they're seeing a progression in people's design docs. Great job, everybody. Good job, Nigel. Mr.
Thanks, man.
Great job.
I had a good time. This is an awesome community event. If I could steal your thunder for a second, and I appreciate the judges. I appreciate everyone that sponsors this, and definitely a learning experience in the short, crammed up time frame.
Good. Thank you. So with that, Eric.
All right. Well, again, I want to echo the thanks. Thank you to both Gareth and to Nigel. You both did great. It's unfortunate we can't carry forward. Also, I did forget to announce this. We noticed that Anthony Hook, unfortunately, was unable to continue in the competition. So Anthony let us know in advance. That's why we're down. So congratulations to our finalists. So heading into the final challenge, we'd like to thank and congratulate that we have Adam Post, Chris Porter, and Kyle Jenner. So this is very exciting. We've got worldwide representation. We've got some new friends and faces to some of those in the V community, in the AWS community, and all around. And it goes without saying that the part of the challenge never ends until we're actually all done. And let's talk about challenge number 4. Melissa?
All I know is I'm about to make Gareth and Nigel very happy that they don't have to deal with this. That's all I know right now. I don't think it's bad as it could be. That being said, let's talk a little bit about the last challenge. And,
you want to defend?
Me defend?
Just say.
Yeah.
No, thanks. I served my sentence. The 4th challenge. So the terraforming of new regions on Earth and other planets has continued. Throughout the first 3 challenges, we saw how our designers attack issues of resiliency, protection, and orchestration. Our remaining participants have been selected to lead parallel efforts, which will be evaluated for the future expansions of the Humanity Link software suite and other applications the survivors of the human race will need. You will have access to 3 Type 1 hosts running on Packet.net. This is the next generation of our anti-zombie weapon laboratory, the Utility Muffin Research Kitchen. This environment will be configured as a cross-cloud environment using open source products to ensure that we have continuous ability to develop, patch, secure, and maintain the products by using our available engineering workforce. This consists of the technological survivors of the zombie apocalypse and their apprentices. Your infrastructure is shared by 3 R&D leaders who must collaborate to ensure all environments are able to share the underlying infrastructure safely. The environment will be configured as a cross-cloud environment. I already read that sentence, excuse me. The environment should be able to be built out using your provisioning code with the new Packet.net when a new Packet.net region on any planet becomes available. Ideally, you should be able to launch the entire infrastructure without any human interaction. You must complete the following. You must deploy your infrastructure using Terraform by HashiCorp on Packet.net hosts. You must deploy a container scheduling platform for your application environment. Deploy and set up a continuous configuration management system using any open source platform. Deploy a self-service application catalog to deploy applications into the environment. Deploy a version control system for the developers to use for application development. Deploy a centralized logging system. Secure your infrastructure and detail your design choices and reasoning. Show a running copy of the virtual design master website using Jekyll in your environment. Document and diagram the infrastructure, including your resiliency and protection strategy. Provide credentials to the judges to evaluate your infrastructure. And as a bonus, it's always good to document and illustrate how you can partially damage your environment and how it can self-heal. Couple limitations. You only have 3 type 1 hosts on Packet.net. You must use open source products unless it is absolutely necessary not to. You only have API access to the DNS environment. And as requirements, we have a couple of things that you must adhere to make sure everything works correctly in our new environment here. Every object must use the FQDN of the utility muffin research kitchen.org. And you want to add resiliency at every layer available. That's not so bad, right? And this is also due at Monday, July 31st at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So you do have a little extra time here to get this going.
Hey, I stopped listening. Can you start over?
It'll be on the website.
Okay.
We always do enjoy watching the faces change as we see each requirement get launched. It's a heck of a challenge.
Wait, I'm not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Actually, I have a bonus challenge. This is in addition to our final challenge, and it's not really aimed at you guys who have to build the zombie defense system in the utility muffin research kitchen. So as we all know, in the new world, humans are our most precious resource. We need the manpower and skill set to make these infrastructures possible. And if you've noticed this season, we've had a rather large emphasis on open source in our final challenge. And in our third challenge, we kind of hinted at it. Luckily, GitHub survived the zombie apocalypse and development has continued on open source software. You are tasked to come up with an innovative new feature for infrastructure provisioning. You may choose any existing open source software product or create your own, but no coding is necessary. We're looking for a well thought out, well-documented idea. And remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. This challenge is open to everybody, including this season's competitors, previous season competitors, and everybody watching right now. So you don't actually have to be a participant to take part in this bonus challenge we've created.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So folks, there you go. You got to get excited. The due dates are identical. This is really, really cool. Thank you, Melissa, for coming out with an exciting new challenge. I know for the folks, obviously, we're going to hope that everybody can get a little bit of sleep. Your challenges will be in your inbox shortly, along with all the details you're going to need to get rolling on things. Congratulations again to Adam, to Chris, and to Kyle. We're very, very happy to see you carry forward with us. We know you've got a really challenging week and a half ahead. And also big thanks, of course, to our judges, to Nigel and for Gareth and to Anthony, who are not going to be moving forward, to all the folks who have been with us and weren't able to get to the final challenge. Everybody did great work throughout. Very excited with that. I've got to close down my portion for the night, and I want to thank everybody. Make sure you keep watching. So in 2 weeks, we will have our live final defense, which is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we will watch the website. We will publish all of our design documents there. The challenge document will be on GitHub, and look for much more. And make sure you cheer all your folks along. Reach out to us because we do have lots of people in the community to help you along. With that, congratulations, everybody. And Angelo, any final words? I've got to close out. I'm going to thank everybody, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.